The Biden administration ushered in a notable shift in U.S. immigration policy, aiming to move away from the restrictive measures of the Trump era. Biden's approach centered around expanding legal pathways for entry, such as increasing the number of refugees admitted annually and reinstating programs like the Central American Minors Program. He also sought to streamline the asylum process for those already at the border, though challenges in implementation and court backlogs continued to plague the system. The Biden administration faced an unprecedented surge in migration at the southern border, driven by a confluence of factors including the COVID-19 pandemic, economic instability, and ongoing violence in Central America. This influx further strained an already overwhelmed system, leading to overcrowding at detention facilities and challenges in providing adequate care and processing for those seeking entry. Despite the challenges, the Biden administration's efforts marked a distinct departure from the previous administration's approach, signaling a commitment to addressing the root causes of migration and seeking more humane solutions to a complex issue. The return of Donald Trump to the White House in 2025 signaled a stark reversal in U.S. immigration policy. Trump, known for his hardline stance on immigration, wasted no time in dismantling many of the programs and policies implemented by the Biden administration. One of Trump's first actions was to drastically reduce the number of refugees allowed into the country, returning to the historically low caps seen during his previous administration. The administration countered by emphasizing the need to prioritize the safety and security of American citizens, echoing the rhetoric that fueled Trump's rise to power. In addition to limiting refugee admissions, Trump also moved quickly to reinstate and expand controversial policies like the Remain in Mexico program, which requires asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their cases are processed in U.S. courts. Trump's return also brought with it a renewed focus on border security, with plans to further fortify physical barriers along the U.S.-Mexico border and increase the presence of Border Patrol agents. This emphasis on enforcement, coupled with the rollback of legal pathways for entry, sent a clear message to those considering seeking refuge or a better life in the United States. The doors were closing. This shift in policy set the stage for a new chapter in U.S. immigration, one marked by increased restrictions, heightened enforcement, and a retreat from the country's historical role as a beacon of hope for immigrants around the world. The Trump administration's decision to revoke Temporary Protected Status, TPS, for several countries, including El Salvador, Haiti, and Honduras, sent shockwaves through immigrant communities across the United States. TPS, a program that provides temporary legal status and work authorization to citizens of countries experiencing armed conflict, natural disasters, or other extraordinary conditions, had become a lifeline for hundreds of thousands of individuals who had built lives in the U.S. over decades. Many TPS holders had lived in the U.S. for decades, raising families, establishing businesses, and contributing to their communities. The administration defended its decision by arguing that the conditions that had initially warranted TPS designation had improved, and that the program was never intended to provide a path to permanent residency. However, critics pointed out that many of these countries continued to grapple with widespread poverty, violence, and the aftermath of natural disasters, making it unsafe for TPS holders to return. Many TPS holders held essential jobs in sectors like healthcare, construction, and agriculture, and their forced removal would leave a significant void in the workforce. The fight over TPS became a flashpoint in the broader debate over U.S. immigration policy, highlighting the human cost of political decisions and the need for a more compassionate and just system. The Trump administration's decision to end humanitarian parole for certain nationalities marked another significant rollback of U.S. immigration policy, further restricting access to protection for vulnerable individuals seeking refuge within its borders. Under the Trump administration, the use of humanitarian parole had already been significantly curtailed, with stricter eligibility requirements and a higher burden of proof for applicants. However, the decision to completely eliminate the program for certain nationalities effectively closed off this avenue of relief, leaving countless individuals and families in precarious and often dangerous situations. Critics of the administration's decision argued that it undermined the United States' commitment to protecting vulnerable populations and ran counter to its historical role as a beacon of hope for those seeking refuge from oppression. The administration defended its stance by citing concerns about fraud and abuse within the humanitarian parole system, arguing that it had been exploited by those seeking to circumvent traditional immigration channels. Section 5. Legal Battles and Uncertain Futures, Navigating the Legal Maze. The Trump administration's sweeping changes to U.S. immigration policy did not go unchallenged. Immigrant rights groups, legal advocacy organizations, and several states filed numerous lawsuits challenging the legality of these policy shifts, arguing that they violated both domestic and international law. These legal battles played out in courtrooms across the country, creating a complex and often confusing landscape for immigrants caught in the crosshairs. One major point of contention was the administration's use of executive power to enact these policy changes. Critics argued that these actions circumvented Congress's authority to legislate on immigration matters, setting a dangerous precedent for future administrations. This legal uncertainty created immense anxiety and confusion for immigrants who were left in limbo, unsure of their rights or their future in the United States. Section 6. Voices from the Ground. The Human Cost of Policy Shifts. Behind the legal battles and political rhetoric surrounding Trump's immigration policy reversals lay countless individual stories of hope shattered, families torn apart, and lives upended. Maria, a single mother from El Salvador, had been living in the U.S. under TPS for over a decade. She had fled her home country after witnessing the brutal murder of her brother, a victim of gang violence that had plagued her community. In the United States, Maria had found safety and stability, working tirelessly to provide for her two young children, both U.S. citizens. The Trump administration's decision to end TPS for El Salvador threw Maria's life into turmoil. She faced the impossible choice of either uprooting her children from the only home they had ever known or being separated from them, forced to return to a country where she still feared for her life. Section 7. A Nation Divided, Conflicting Perspectives on Immigration. The debate over Trump's immigration policy reversals exposed deep divisions within American society, reflecting long-standing disagreements over the country's role in the world, the economic impacts of immigration, and the very definition of American identity. Supporters of Trump's policies argued that he was simply fulfilling his campaign promises to prioritize American citizens and secure the nation's borders. They pointed to concerns about national security, the strain on social services, and the potential impact on American jobs as justification for these restrictive measures. Opponents of Trump's policies countered that these measures were cruel, inhumane, and counterproductive. They argued that they undermined American values, tarnished the country's image abroad, and did little to address the root causes of migration. The debate over Trump's immigration policies often devolved into accusations of racism and xenophobia, with critics arguing that the administration was targeting specific groups based on their national origin or religion. This rhetoric, they argued, fueled a climate of fear and intolerance, leading to an increase in hate crimes and discrimination against immigrant communities. Section 8. A System in Crisis, the Need for Comprehensive Reform. The ongoing turmoil surrounding U.S. immigration policy under the Trump administration highlighted the deep-seated flaws and dysfunction within the system itself. One of the key challenges facing any attempt at immigration reform was the sheer complexity of the issue itself. The U.S. immigration system was a patchwork of laws, regulations, and court decisions, often contradictory and difficult to navigate even for those with legal expertise. Another major challenge was the lack of political will to enact meaningful reform. Immigration had become one of the most divisive issues in American politics, with both parties often resorting to partisan rhetoric and gridlock rather than seeking common ground. Despite the challenges, there was a growing consensus among policymakers, academics, and business leaders that the status quo was unsustainable. Section 9. The Road Ahead, Navigating the Future of U.S. Immigration. As the Trump administration continued to reshape U.S. immigration policy, the road ahead remained uncertain for millions of immigrants, their families, and the nation as a whole. The legal battles over these policy shifts were likely to continue for years to come, leaving many in limbo and fueling further uncertainty and anxiety. The future of U.S. immigration policy would likely depend on the outcome of future elections and the political will of those in power. If the Trump administration's policies remained in place, they would likely have a profound impact on the demographics of the United States, potentially leading to a decrease in immigration, particularly from Latin America and Muslim-majority countries. The need for comprehensive immigration reform remained as pressing as ever, addressing the root causes of migration, creating a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants already living in the U.S., and reforming the legal immigration system to make it more efficient and humane were all essential steps towards creating a more just and equitable system.